studio class, and what I like to do after you've played is just say, just in a few words, maybe 300 words or less, tell the audience some things about this piece that you most like your audience to know. You know, it could be something feeling or how you feel about playing the piece, or it could be something about the piece itself. It could be, you know, any kind of a topic, or just for a few sentences, a paragraph or so. But just what would you like the audience that's listening to you to know about the piece to help them understand it?
Especially the first one, it's really large feeling, especially in the middle section.
Can you tell them?
Middle section. The Schumann composed this piece when he visited Wien, and then he did like the vibe those two really great for him, so that's what he wrote this piece. And then there's some song between the middle section, which is French Revolution Marseilles. I think it's also highlight of the piece, I think.
Yeah, you think that's the highlight of the first movement? I think that's possible. You know, it's unexpected unless you know the piece already, and it's certainly an important piece of music. It only happens once. You know, it just suddenly is there and then it's gone. So it's hard to kind of understand exactly what Schumann had in mind by suddenly including the French national anthem in this piece, but it's interesting. So I think the thing that I'd most like to work on, and that I think that it's the opening of this piece, it's really easy for this group of 4/8 notes to get a little bit covered over. You know, it's just going to sound, you know, this piece, you know, and I feel like I really want to hear that I beat all of these. I think those 4/8 notes have a lot to do with making the rhythm go forward. Thump, thump. And I agree with you. There's a basic. There's a basic harmonic progression that happens through there. But I think the thing that gives the musical lift, you know, and kind of some of the exuberance, you know, is to hear that. And what's happening is that this is so big. I don't hear the eights at one time, yeah? And so could we just have the young that improvement I didn't hear the yet with your thumb. I still did. You know, it's hard because you have all of these sounds, and the F is already held down, and so it's easy for that F to not be heard. So I pick my hand up just a little bit, so I hear the that's really important, and it goes through much of the piece. I mean, this idea keeps coming back, and there are other places that you have this 4-note idea, and so just make sure you really hear all 4 notes when you're doing that. Have you run across in your studies yet the word hypermeter? So hypermeter means that you are counting a distance or a pulse rather than counting every note value. And I think this is a great piece to be thinking in hypermeter because it's organized in 4-part phrases, and it's a fast tempo, right? And so if you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, or you're thinking in that direction for a little bit more, so that you make a longer phrase. And I think that the purpose for that is because the first 2 bars, we start with the upbeat, and then the first 2 bars, have that character. And then suddenly we have these 3 chords, right? And to make that feel rhythmic, you know, I feel like you need something on each chord. Yeah, exactly. And so you can make that happen within a 3rd beat. And so if I was conducting yum da 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 dum ti da 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 dum 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 ti, and I think it needs a little bit of that kind of lilt or the motion. Otherwise, everything becomes a very dum da 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 dum da 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 dum dum dum. It would be like playing the violin and only being able to do down bows. Bang, 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 bang. You know, I need dum da 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 da. I need that jet. Okay, so think ready. I'm gonna conduct a little bit, and we'll start with 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think it gives it more personality as well when you do that. And then, what's the goal of the trace? Where's that arrival? Okay, well, it can be the first measure, yeah. You know, there's always the accent on the first beat here and there. But bum, 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 when you get over to the dum. And so, can you make these sounds have the forte? Don't give it everything yet. You know, we have and then 3/4 staccatos. That's the arrival, right? And so bum bum dee. This is the first bit. Yeah. And you know, this is a really bright room, and it's a big piano, and so especially these 3 notes, you just have a little direction, I think. So you go, and there's a crescendo there, so it wouldn't hurt to pull back a little bit on that note. So, yeah, it's only forte, so don't give away everything too soon. You know, you can pull back just a little bit, at least in this space. The day you play at Carnegie Hall, we'll have to go give it more. Okay. Bum bum. Let it dance. G's feel interrupted. You know, we've heard this motive twice already by the time and we arrive and then suddenly, you know, it's something different happens there. And even though it's forte, let the texture change a little bit. The sound of the texture. Suddenly you have a longer line that comes from something different. So I don't want to say be softer because Schumann still says forte here, but be different. And there's sforzandos on the 2 most dissonant chords and accents on the others. So suddenly we're in G minor. Right, so this is dramatic. You need all 4 notes. There you go. There's a melodic quality there that the first phrase is attacked. Ready? Can we start preparing? Lots of Schumann, but especially this piece, we have long harmonic progressions that are interspersed with intervening notes. You know, so feel like this G minor goes to there, and then suddenly this 3 note staccato becomes the 5-note idea. Then it carries you to yet a different key, C minor. Okay? So can we just start on G's and kind of interrupt with imagine that you're the person in the orchestra who gets to play all of those things. You don't want anyone interrupting those, right? You know, you enjoy. That's it. Great point. I think that's quite nice already. But, you know, it's a nice change of characters. The one thing that just really to be aware of, it's so melodic and absolutely is piano, but it needs just a little bit more projection of this. So we've got this sound, and right to the B flat. So we've got this, even though it's soft, right to the B flat. I think just speak harmonically. This one. Elongated linear melody that's not affected by as many chords and that sort of thing. And then I always think it's a great idea with really pretty much every piece of music, but especially if we're talking about songwriters, Schumann, Schubert's, to ask the question, how does the accompaniment inform the melody? So this goes to underneath. What do you think that accompaniment does for the melody in this piece? How does it inform? How does it change or describe it?
I think that each quarter the left hand support the melody. Showing them.
Okay, so the quarter notes in the left hand support the melody. That's the California. Not these. And by the way, it's 4/8 notes. So what's different about those? What's different from those that? I think they're in the middle. That there's in the middle voice, right? And so we've got a different kind of a melody. We don't have any octaves or chord weighting in this per se. Suddenly it's become more contrapuntal and a little bit a lot more linear, right? So you feel that as a gesture, and if it informs, it pushes the melody forward. We've got lots of dotted half notes. We would have to be listening through long notes in order to create a long line. But this makes that happen. Yeah, I like that a lot. And you're using a little bit of rubato to help kind of show the inner voices, those four notes, try with a little bit less vibrato, but I like the expressive quality. Yeah, this edition has a change from 76 to 84 on the metronome. Schumann and metronome markings are always, there need to be lots of dissertations written about that. But I think you could keep the same tempo. Sforzando arrives on the dissonant, on the non-harmonic tone. There's this right there by the F sharp. And the next one is it has the A. There, right? And so you can think of the sforzandos as not being necessarily loud. A lot louder, but they can be just important. They can just be, and that it enriches the heart a little bit more. Feel like you're going to leave a fingerprint on the key when you do that. A little, just the duration. Di dum, di ja. Because you have three long phrases, yeah. Okay, great. So those would be the main things in the opening gesture is a little bit more support in the second theme with the intervening support, the accompaniment pattern. Make sure that you hear all four notes and it's always in the pattern. Think in hyper reader so that it's not too vertical. Those would be kind of the three things. Okay, so let's jump over. Since you love the French national so much, let's jump over to this section. Okay. Suggest with the, first of all, the rhythm is very similar already. And we have these 2 8 notes and a quarter note that are, so they're going to stand out. This feels so much like a march, but it can't really be a march because it's in 3 instead of 4, right? But it's a public private tries the idea of a parade or something to go on that melody, right? And I feel like 2 things are happening. Your hands are quite a ways away from the keys. And so I've seen you do this. And it causes you to make too many up and down motions. And what happens is that you end up making more gestures and more motions than you need to. And if you would just take this 3-note idea, you can be on the keys to start. And there's one technical impulse. It's actually a 4-note, right? And there's all kinds of ways to describe this. You could have it move in towards the foul board, or you could just think that it has a little bit of follow through in the wrist. I like rotation. I'm not sure rotation does you much good here, but those would be the two gestures that I do. Same thing with this. Right now I see you doing. So if you so much better. And the other thing I'd say about this is that when the French Marseillaise comes in, it's marked fortissimo and is the very loudest thing that happens in this section. And so hold this back a little bit. It's only forte because you've got to save room so that when it arrives in great style, right? So up, down, and then there's the 4-note drop. It's like if you have a ball and you drop the ball, it bounces 4 times. It's one thing initiates it. You get it done. Try that. Another reason to be just a little softer than that is also so that you can hear the accents. And so, you know, and I'm going to do this when we need the accent. So don't overdo the accents and pull back the sound a little bit, but show us when the arrival point is happened. Ready, and now we have this, you know, so forte and up, down. Gesture is much better. We need a little bit of BM right there, right? You know, not quite so. In all of this, and to say about a third of the way down, maybe. You know, when you cut this, still have a voice. And I think even though you have repeated B's there, I think that's going to be hearable. Sound different ways. He has a couple of hairpins. You can go like some dynamics. I just feel like this whole section has to pull back and pull back. Just pull back because of what's about to happen in 3 lines from that. Okay? Let's go through the beat. It doesn't have the effectiveness if you've already reached that sound. And I'm proud when you get to that. So suddenly we have make it grandiose, right? I would love to know what happened that day in Schumann's life, to just see a French flag in the middle, you know, of this celebration of the fall. But just make up a story, okay? But let's go into the bum, bum, bum. But still let me hear one. Let me hear the 4/8. Because that motive comes through, is still going strong, and it's starting right from the very first line. And instead of thinking yum da 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 da, think of the downbeat, and then think of an extended upbeat that goes across the bar line. So instead of da 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 da, think yum da 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 da, and that helps you end when that starts on you. I think it can hurry. I think it can go a little bit faster like that. But that brings up an old issue that we talked about already that you also have to be really careful about. What would that be, do you think? The paddling is pretty good. Yeah, it's hearing all 4 notes. Because we've got them all here. You know, the conductor's chewing in. Something else does it. Show me that. So for and think it could be 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. Right, just be sure when this starts that I hear. Those 4 note IDs that plastic really cuts up. Lyrical, so that it offsets so much of this piece, which is so directed. Aren't you like that? And you know, so far in this piece, every single phrase that we've encountered starts with an upbeat. And I say this so frequently that I think it's important. We've all known this for a long time. You know, that when something starts with an upbeat, it just has such a different quality about it than the contrasting trace that's downbeat, where you know, everything is all of that. And even here, even the French National Band, because of that beat. And so always be thinking of the music going this way as opposed to G that way. Yeah. And that carries it forward, and it helps sustain all the way through this whole movement. And then you can discover what happens in future movements if you ever get to really have some. Yeah, that's it. So it's great to hear you.